Welcome back to On Track GP, I'm Jamie Chambers, and with the 2023 Formula 1 season officially over, here is everything you need to know about the 2024 season, including next year's drivers lineup, calendar, and regulation changes. The F1 2024 campaign feels a lot closer now that the FIA has confirmed the entry list, with several teams sporting new names. As the dust settles on the most recent campaign of Formula 1 action, focus now switches to what is to come for this year's drivers and teams as they gear up for the 2024 season. And it's a grid rather unique in Formula 1 terms, as no driver changes have been made. This means that all drivers and team combination that completed the final round of the previous season are due to remain unchanged for the start of the next season, for the first time in the Formula 1 Championship history. But while the teams will all line up with the same drivers, change is still in the air, with several teams having name changes confirmed by the FIA's F1 2024 entry list. Aston Martin, meanwhile, had already confirmed their identity shift ahead of F1 2024 entry list, with the team rebranded as Aston Martin Aramco Formula 1 team after a 5-year extension was signed with the Saudi Arabian oil company to make it the team's sole title sponsor, having previously been dual signatures with Cognizant in 2021. Elsewhere, after much speculation for the eagerly anticipated new name of Red Bull's second team, AlphaTauri, they announced that they will be AlphaTauri. Well, almost. Scuderia AlphaTauri RB, to be exact, coming further into line with the Red Bull umbrella. Alpine will not be searching for a new principal after deciding that interim boss Bruno Famin will stay in the role for 2024. The French outfit opted for a drastic move ahead of 2023 summer break, with Otmar Szafnauer lost his job after just 16 months in the role, having failed to agree on a timeline for the team's recovery. In the interim, Vice President of Alpine Motorsport Famin stepped in, but Alpine have opted to stick with that arrangement for the next season. Famin has had quite the year at Alpine, having started as its head of their power unit production in Viry-Châtillon and ending it as one of the most senior figures in the team. But under him, Alpine's form has picked up, with Pierre Gasly finishing P11 and Esteban Ocon P12. Their P6 finish, however, is not where the team plans to be long term, and although their status of their 100 race plan is unclear, there are at least some continuity going into 2024. Alpine confirmed to Planet F1 that Famin will continue as vice president of their motorsports division and also continue to assume its role as team principal. It does leave Famin in the unusual situation of being his own boss, but he recently said that if Renault higher-ups were unhappy with his work, they would be sure to tell him about it. Although there are not many massive changes heading into 2024, a new record-breaking 24-race calendar will make its biggest year ever for Formula 1. The calendar has been regionalised by the FIA in an attempt to make the series more sustainable, including moving the Japanese Grand Prix to April from its usual September spot for a more defined Asian leg. The Chinese Grand Prix will make its return to the Formula 1 calendar after being cancelled for the last 4 years. Freight can now move from Australia to Japan and then on to China to improve the efficiencies of travelling. The Qatar Grand Prix will become the penultimate race of the season, which should help with the heat issues faced by drivers in 2023, but will also make transportation of cars and equipment to the Abu Dhabi finale much easier. The Azerbaijan Grand Prix moves from an April slot to September and is the first of a back-to-back with Singapore. And finally, Qatar shifts from October weekend to the 1st of December as a stop-off from Las Vegas on its way back to Abu Dhabi. The season begins with 2 Saturday races. For the first time since 1985, a full World Championship Grand Prix took place on a day other than Sunday this year, when lights went out for the much-anticipated inaugural Las Vegas Grand Prix. In 2024, Bahrain and Saudi Arabia will join Las Vegas in making a 3 Saturday race calendar, the former 2 accommodating Ramadan, a period of fasting, prayer and reflection observed by Muslims around the world, which begins on Sunday, March 10th, one day after the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. It means everything will shift forward a day for the opening 2 events, with the media day taking place on Wednesday, the opening 2 free practice sessions on Thursday, FP3 and qualifying on Friday, and the main event, the Grand Prix, on Saturday. F1 prepares for another new street race. The Spanish Grand Prix has been a mainstay on the Formula 1 calendar for decades. However, the Circuit de Catalunya Barcelona is not as widely loved as its longevity might have you assume. The low final sector chicane was removed to restore the former glory of the track's high-speed last corner. Despite the modification, F1 has greener pastures in mind. The championship's Spanish round could be moving to a street circuit in the Spanish capital of Madrid in the near future. Madrid has played host to Formula One The Exhibition and would be the newest addition to the never-ending slate of street races. 2024 F1 regulation changes. The FIA has made some changes to regulations around the testing of old cars, stipulating that any components must have been run previously or used on a race weekend. Article 10.2c of the sporting regulations has been revised to state cars must only use components and software of a specification that has been used in at least one competition or TCC of a championship season. The regulation change will ensure that teams cannot run any brand new components on an old car to try and gain any data outside of testing restrictions. Next year's F1 season will once again see just a single 3-day pre-season test in Bahrain a week prior to the opening round at the Sakir circuit. Although there will be no official in-season tests and teams are largely prohibited from running their 2024 cars privately, the FIA has expanded the scope for testing in some specific circumstances through the season. At the request of the F1 tyre suppliers Pirelli, the allocation of FIA-organised tyre testing days permitted for Pirelli to gather data for tyre development has increased from 35 days to 40. In addition, there will be 4 days dedication to testing wet weather tyres. This will give teams an opportunity to assist Pirelli in developing the intermediate and wet tyre compounds, which have been criticised by many drivers. The FIA is also seeking to develop a form of wheel guard to reduce the spray thrown up by the tyres. As was the case this season, teams will be permitted to run so-called promotional events, commonly referred to as filming days, in which they may run their current cars using specifically designed tyres. However, the previous 100-kilometre allowance for filming days has been doubled, with a clarification that teams are only allowed to carry out one promotional filming event in a single day. The F1 teams have begun to announce their 2024 reserve drivers for the upcoming season. Some of the teams have retained their 23 reserve drivers, including Red Bull rookie Liam Lawson and Mercedes Mick Schumacher. However, some teams have decided to bring in new drivers, including McLaren, who have announced 2 new drivers to their lineup. The team has announced it will sign this year's 24-hour Le Mans winner Ryu Hirakawa and IndyCar driver Pato O'Ward as reserve drivers for next season. Formula One is in talks to change the sprint race format for 24, which has gained support from teams and bosses. Changes have not yet been agreed, with further discussions being held in January with the FIA. This could involve a complete revamp of the weekend timetable or a reverse grid format. The 6 sprint weekends in 2023 had already faced some changes, including the race having a separate qualifying session, which no longer determined the grid for Sunday's Grand Prix. But with the separation of the Grand Prix and qualifying moving to a Friday, teams were placed under Parc Fermé rules from Friday's FP1 onwards. Talks have begun between F1 and the teams to decide on a format for the overhaul for 24, with one proposal suggesting qualifying for Sunday's Grand Prix to return to a Saturday afternoon with the sprint race in the morning. The sprint shootout qualifying, which sets the grid for the sprint race, would then be moved to Friday following FP1. This change could allow Parc Fermé conditions to be reopened after the sprint race, allowing teams to make any needed changes ahead of qualifying. Speaking of sprint races, the new 2024 sprint race lineup looks like this: China, Miami, Austria, United States, Sao Paulo and Qatar. The F1 Commission also highlighted other matters of discussion, including further development in their research into reducing the volume of spray produced by modern ground effect cars in wet conditions. After a test of experimental wheel arches at Silverstone following the British Grand Prix in July, the F1 Commission announced that a further test would be carried out early in 2024 to help inform future development of the FIA's project to reduce wet weather spray. The alternative tyre allocation, which was tested at the Hungarian and Italian Grand Prix, will not be carried over for the 2024 regulations. Drivers will therefore continue to receive the standard allocation of 13 sets of dry tyres for every round of the 2024 championship. F1's intention to ban the use of tyre warming blankets has also suffered another setback. A ban was proposed for 2024 but turned down by teams, and the Commission confirmed tyre blankets will be retained for 2025 as well. Following the intense heat and discomfort drivers experienced during this year's Qatar Grand Prix, which led to many drivers receiving medical attention for potential dehydration, the F1 Commission approved an update of the technical regulations to allow an air scoop to channel more air into the cockpit to be fitted to cars in future. There will also be further analysis carried out to provide more effective cooling solutions for primarily extreme conditions in the future. In additional moves for 2024 season, a technical regulations amendment has been approved with a view to limit the size and number of metal components used in the formation of car floors, which are subject to greater punishment under ground effect regulations that previous generations of F1 cars have been subject to. In regards to the budget cap, all activities focused on sustainability measures and the reduction of carbon footprint for teams will be excluded from each team's budget cap. For the 11th year running, V6 hybrid turbo power units with 1.6 litre engines will be used by all teams in the 2024 season. This is expected to be the penultimate year they appear before being replaced by a new power unit in 2026. Looking ahead to the introduction of the new unit in 2026, the Commission announced that an agreement was reached that will restrict teams from beginning development on their 2026 cars until the beginning of 2025. That was On Track GP's look towards 2024 and some of the changes we can expect during the off-season and moving into 2024. We are sure there is going to be some more announcements and other changes happen before lights out in Bahrain, and we will be here to bring you any news as it happens. What's been the biggest change for you so far? What changes are you hoping for? Let us know what you think in the comments, and remember to like, comment, share and subscribe. This has been On Track GP. I've been Jamie Chambers. Keep the pedal to the metal, and I'll catch you in the next video.